Nurse Heather Manus, a registered nurse and absolutely someone doing great work with cannabis as medicine. She's done a lot for those with PTSD. She's got a lot to say on the strength of the plant, the strength of people, and this is a good one. They're all good, but this is a little bit different, so enjoy. Okay, so this should be fun. We have, well, Nurse Heather Manus with us. Nurse Heather, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
As nurses, we have to ask.
You have to ask. There you go. Otherwise, you don't know. And the reason I call you Nurse Heather is because that's how you introduced yourself to me.
Yeah, well, that's how I introduce myself to everyone, and pretty much the world as we know it, they respond to me and reference me by that name. So I answer and refer to myself that way.
Okay, and then you are a registered nurse. How long have you been a registered nurse?
I've been a registered nurse in New Mexico since 2010. I graduated in December of '09, and so I've been a nurse for 5 years or more.
Okay, and then are you from New Mexico?
I am.
Okay, so you born and bred New Mexico. What do you call yourselves? New Mexicans?
New Mexicans, that's it.
Oh, okay, fair enough. And what area did you grow up in?
I grew up in the northwest corner, the Four Corners area. It's the Farmington Bloomfield area, and it's right near the Navajo reservation. So I've had access to Native Americans and Hispanics and Anglos. So that was primarily the demographic that I grew up in.
Got it. Okay. So basically as diverse as New York City.
Yes.
Right. So the Four Corners are because of the fact that there are other states that are right there. Am I right?
That's right. We're New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado, the only place in the United States where Four Corners match up, and that's it. That's where I was raised.
There you go. All right. So that's pretty cool. And then how much influence from the other states up in that corner of New Mexico is there? Is it are you born proud New Mexicans, or is it kind of a little bit of overlap?
I don't know how many people are proud New Mexicans, but I like to go because Colorado is right across the border, and one of my favorite places to run away was Durango, Colorado, because it's very green and holistic, and it's in the mountains, and so I would zip up there quite frequently. I had friends in that area, and the Pagosa Springs area in Colorado, where the hot springs are. It's very lovely and relaxing. And
yeah, what you're describing sounds like utopia.
Yeah, it is. That's why I would run across the border to go do that. But there's also beautiful places in New Mexico. It's just being right there in the Four Corners area, you have access to all four states pretty readily.
Awesome. And then when you started to go across to Colorado, how old were you? What kind of years was that?
Well, I got my license when I was 15, and so I was driving. And even if I wasn't supposed to go all the way to Colorado, sometimes my car went that direction.
You couldn't help it. It was the car.
Yeah, you can't help it when you're 15 and a license and a vehicle and friends that want to go places.
Right. I thought I had a brief moment of I don't want to say terror, but I certainly was concerned because you got your RN license in 2010, and I thought that that's what you were talking about, that you were 15 in 2010. So there's a lot of things wrong with that.
Yeah, no, we won't go there.
Yeah, no. Okay, so we'll leave that alone.
We're not talking age. Come on, you know better.
Oh, right. No, of course not. But what I want to get to, I guess, you mentioned Durango as a, kind of a holistic place. Is that where the kind of Nurse Heather started to kind of awaken, or?
It was. If you go back that far, I had attended my first holistic convention in Denver or in Durango when I was a young mother, and I really got a feel for that side of medicine, not necessarily medicine, but healing. And not only that, living in the New Mexico region, we had a lot of the spiritual nature that happens on the Navajo reservation with Native Americans and their ceremonies. I had access to that and just felt of that spirit constantly, as well as the Hispanic community there in New Mexico. They have literal roots of healing there for years and years and years. So I was able to learn from some of the best healers in New Mexico on herbal medicines and different ways of spiritual healing and different modalities. So that all played into who Nurse Heather became.
Got it. Yeah. No, we talked to Susan Tchaikovsky, I think, a little bit about that, about healing. And so let's kind of dive in there as far as the applications that the Hispanics are using and the Navajos are using. What lessons did you come away with? You said you learned a lot, but what rose to the top for you?
Well, I learned that plants are our teachers and that they're here to teach us and assist us in our life. And so each plant has different spirit about it. And the cannabis plant in general is a very powerful plant, and when you're working with the spirit of that plant, there's a lot that it can teach us. So I think that's one of the most important lessons that I learned, was that plants are our teachers, and you have to be open to what they are what message they're trying to get across, and what their purpose is.
Yeah. So, what we're kind of learning in real time is that there are a number of different types of people that are listening to these. You've got patients themselves. You've got certainly business people in the industry. You've got business people that are interested in the industry. And then you've just got folks that are interested in the plant, generally. Adult use, recreational type folks, right? So it won't be for everybody, but I know that there is something called Nurse Heather's CBD 101. And maybe this is a good time to bring us through that.
Well, you've done your homework, and I don't have it right in front of me, but to quote anything off of it that I've written already. But basically it talks about how hemp and cannabis are a little bit different, and that although hemp is a sativa from the sativa line, it's different than the medical cannabis that we work with. And so what we talk about is whole plant medicine, and using all of the cannabis plant and the cannabinoids and the terpenes and all of the wonderful parts of the cannabis plant to use that as medicine. And there's been such a lot of information coming out regarding CBD and from hemp, and how that can be used medically. And I look at that and think that hemp really it's a really great, amazing plant, but when we're trying to work with, say, seizure patients or cancer patients, we really need to use a full cannabinoid profile to get that entourage effect of all the cannabinoids working together. We're finding that supports the endocannabinoid system the best, and for a more prolonged amount of time, that patients will actually see the benefits of that, more so than just using CBD, say, from the hemp plant. Although it's a beautiful plant and it has its purpose.
All right. So plants are our teachers, and you are our teacher of the plant. So now, kind of diving in here with that understanding, going back to where you went to this convention. And when did you first come across, this plant as medicine?
The cannabis plant. Well, I really started to see. In my own life, I had some experiences where cannabis was a teacher for me, and it helped me through some of the medical issues that I was having. But I didn't really understand that it was medicine until I became a nurse. And I started working with patients that were using it the same way that I was just kind of using it to, what people love to say, self-medicate. And I started really looking into the science about the endocannabinoid system, which I didn't know anything about at that time when I was self-medicating. And by being a nurse, it helped me to understand all of what was going on with the body, the science behind it, and then to be able to apply, oh, this plant can be used as medicine. And so that's when a lot of the training that I'd received from the Native American and Hispanic healers, where I knew how to make medicines, salves, balms, elixirs for healing with different herbs, that I was able to say, hey, I know we can do that with cannabis and create the same sort of medicines in smokeless forms. And so that was, for me, the healing part, when it really started to match up that this is medicine. I always knew that the plant was special. I think anybody who's a teenager or, grows up in the United States in the public school system will understand that cannabis is something that's different and it's interesting, and the teenagers gravitate toward it and experiment, but they don't understand the complete healing potential that this plant has. And so I didn't get that until much later, realizing that it was an important plant, but then now understanding why it's important. Again, plants are our teachers, and they take us in interesting directions.
Good. Okay. And so I want to make sure to connect the dots here, because, when you were younger, you came across these communities, and then though you made sure to go through schooling and become a registered nurse, take us through that time in your life once you had already, been through kind of alternative medicine, in quotes, experiences. What, when and why did you dive into being a traditional registered nurse?
Well, that would come from a personal experience, really. I had two children that were both premature, and so I'd spent time in the hospital with them when they were babies. And the nurses there, I was a young mother, and I didn't leave my baby's sides. I was really there. I engaged in what was going on medically, and the nurses there had told me, you would make a really fantastic nurse. So that being said, I had my children, and I was a mom, and I wasn't a nurse. But in 2000, it was a turning point for me, and I was attacked by a stranger and nearly killed, and it was a horrible experience for me. And from that, I have suffered with PTSD basically ever since. And so I went through the traditional medical system. I went to the doctor, I went to the psychologist, I took all of the medications that they gave me, just a cocktail of lots of different meds, and I was having these horrendous side effects. And so I would go back to the doctor and say, doctor, I'm having these side effects, and they say, oh, well, let's up the dose or let's change the medication. And I never could quite find balance. It really was affecting my life. And so this was before the time of everybody being on Google, just GTS, look it up, it was kind of different for me to say, well, I want to find more information. So I went online and I looked up these medications and found out that a lot of the side effects that I was experiencing were directly due to the medications that I was taking. And I felt very betrayed. I felt hurt because I was coming in telling my doctors that I was having these side effects, and they weren't addressing it as a medicine issue, just thinking I needed more medicine or something like that. And so I made a decision that I was going to go off all of my medicines, and I told my family and I told my doctors, and I did it safely. But it was difficult. It took me about 3 weeks to get completely through that process. And when I came out of the pill haze, I realized that I didn't want anyone else to go through what I went through. And I had an understanding of how these medications could be used positively, but also I felt that people were being medicated unnecessarily. And I was able to do a complete lifestyle change. It wasn't just that I stopped taking medicine, it was a lifestyle change. I started exercising, I started eating healthy foods. Cannabis was part of that, but it wasn't the whole package. And so I went to school to be a nurse and to learn more. And it was never like I'm going to school to be a cannabis nurse. I had no idea. I just wanted to make a difference. And so when cannabis came into my world and I was able to work with patients and this plant medicine, literally, I know that I was placed on the planet to do what I'm doing today.
Absolutely. And, we had some, veterans, and their PTSD issues at one of the events that where we met. And I want to make sure to not go too far in, but definitely make sure that we talk about this attack as much as we can to, as you said, make sure that no one else has to go through what you went through just on the medical side of things. How much more do you want to share about that as it relates to the conversation that we're having?
I don't, I've pretty much been to therapy for it, so I don't try to dive into it too much to retell the story. But, it was a stranger, it was a man. And so I had a lot of issues regarding anxiety, sleep, being alone, being in the dark. Being around men in general was a really big one for me. And, cannabis helps because it affects those parts of the brain that are the fight and flight, that have that fight or flight responses. And so by using cannabis to quiet some of the noise that's unnecessary, the fears that say, oh, you need to be alert, you need to be aware, you need to be watching and hyper vigilant. It quiets that. And so when someone uses cannabis who has PTSD, very, very often you'll hear them say, I don't get high, I don't feel high, I feel normal. And that's because we've actually found scientifically that there is a diagnosis we call now the clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. And what we find, because the endocannabinoid system is the homeostasis or balancing system within our body that balances out all of our other systems, that when shock or some kind of a trauma happens and that system gets knocked off balance, that creates an endocannabinoid deficiency. So the body actually stops producing the amount of endocannabinoids they need to be normal. And so what they find is that there are a lot of receptors in the brain that are open or empty. There's no cannabinoid there, endocannabinoid. That's that way because your body is not producing that chemical. So when you use an exogenous form of cannabis or an exogenous cannabinoid, then you actually, that comes from cannabis, then you're actually filling those receptor sites that were previously empty. And it only makes sense that you wouldn't feel high, you would just feel normal, because now you're providing for your body something that's missing, and that's what we do with all medicine. If something's missing, we supplement it, vitamins, things like that. So it logically makes sense for post-traumatic stress disorder, and just like you said, the veterans are finding great relief as well for their post-traumatic stress disorder.
Absolutely. So, and thank you for kind of taking us through that, because it very plainly kind of states exactly why it would work for someone that's experienced PTSD.
Yes.
I want to kind of keep you with your work brain on, because the next question is epilepsy, and even epilepsy in kids. Can you do as good of a job explaining why cannabis works in that realm as you just did for PTSD?
Because I haven't really been focused, we had done the big push in Arizona for post-traumatic stress disorder, and I literally had to sit on the stand and educate the judge about the endocannabinoid system and post-traumatic stress disorder. So I really know that very well. The thing I can tell you about seizures is that I have several patients that I work with. And first of all, the U.S. government has a patent on cannabinoids as neuroprotectant and antioxidants. So when you look at a neuroprotectant, it would only then again make sense that it would be helpful for seizures. It does something with the connection and the firing in the brain. Again, it kind of quiets those things or makes it so it's not so reactive, which is what you see with seizures. I have a really great story for you, because when I was in Denver for the MedMJ 420 conference, some parents came with their children, and they were cannabis refugees that had come to Colorado because their children had Dravet syndrome, which is the 300 seizures a week or 300 seizures a day kind of thing. And so I was able to see these kids, and it was really fun to interact with them and have that experience and see the smiles on their faces and see the smiles on their parents' faces because they were being treated with cannabis. To go on the other side of that, I just got back a week ago from being in Ohio, where we were doing a lobby days for the families there with children who have Dravet syndrome. And they can't leave Ohio to come to Colorado. They need Ohio to get medicine so that, allow medicine for their children. And we were there at the State House doing some education. And there were about 5 kids there. And the amount of seizures that I saw in a 2-hour period maxed the amount of seizures I've seen in my entire nursing career, my entire life. There were just, these kids were so sick, and they were having so many seizures, one right after another. And it was quite an experience for me, because I was so used to being in a setting where children were being treated. They were meeting their milestones. They were growing and thriving, to now coming to a state where it wasn't legal and that medicine was not an option, and to see how sick these kids are and how stressed their families are. If nothing else, it's creating smiles. It's creating smiles for the patient and their families. And for me, that's enough. That's enough. It works.
And so you have seen either in New Mexico, in Colorado, you've seen kids that have that same syndrome kind of not have the seizures that they did, and especially kind of the night and day comparison to Ohio.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
Well,
and I've worked with adults as well. It's we talk a lot about kids when we talk about seizures and the Dravet syndrome, but really epilepsy and adult seizures, those are rampant as well. And so I don't want to forget my adult seizure patients who have gone their entire lives on these certain medications that have just given them side effects. And when they found cannabis, it changed their lives in such a positive, dramatic way that, again, when you see something that just works, for me as a nurse, I don't need to know every single detail about what's going on. I'm trying to get from A to B, and this plant is really amazing. It works.
So yeah, and you started to kind of get real with it, for lack of a better term, when you said that you were experiencing those side effects of the kind of medicine that you were getting from doctors. You said something interesting. I want to go back there. You said you're having side effects, and that the doctors were not addressing the side effects as a medicine issue. What did you mean by that?
Well, they never told me that these were the side effects that I would be experiencing from the medication. They never said to me, Heather, you may be experiencing this because you're having adverse reactions to this medicine. They never said that. They said, well, we'll change your dose, or we'll put you on another medication. We'll try another medication. They call it medical practice for a reason. I felt like I was being practiced on, and I knew that what was happening in this cocktail of medicines that I was taking was completely removing me as a person and as a mother and as a wife from my life. I could not function. I don't know how else to say it. I never had my libido was, plummeted. My ability to give a care about anything. I didn't care about cleaning my house. I would get my kids off to school and I would go back to bed and I would get up when my kids got home and I was so exhausted. I had no life. And that was not okay. I did not want to live that way. And so when I was going to the doctor, what I was asking him was, help me get better. Help me get better. That's why we go to a doctor. And I felt like I went to him to get better, and he gave me more pills that made me feel bad. And so I just felt like I wish there would have been somebody in the interim there, a nurse, that doctor, someone who could have said, Heather, there's another way. You've got to take a look at your lifestyle. You've got to make sure you're eating right. You need to exercise and, take care of yourself. Do yoga. Get back to who you are. And instead of trying to find relief from something that you just swallow in pill form.
Yeah. My mother had something called amyloidosis for a few years, and she passed away about 10 years ago. And when you just mentioned the doctors kind of, doing what they were doing with you with dosage and medicine, that's exactly what was happening. And you just said, I felt like I was being practiced on. That is that brought that right back to the front of my mind. So
yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah, well, and,
I hear what you're saying there.
It's called health care. And if you spell it out, you cannot spell health care without adding THC. So try that one on. THC and cannabinoids are definitely part of health care.
Yeah, let's get back to you, Heather. As far as where you kind of started. So you've got the background of the alternative medicine in quotes, and you get your then become a registered nurse. Then you kind of find cannabis as medicine, and then where did you go from there? Is Nature's Power the first stop there, or what where did you first started to
Yeah, so interestingly enough, Nature's Power started before all of this, because I was making native medicines, salves and balms and different concoctions that I was selling at different shops and things like that. And that was my Nature's Power. So when it came down to, and I'll kind of lead into, as I was a nurse working in the home health scene, I had so many patients that were disclosing that they used cannabis that it was kind of shocking to me. And I realized that was really prevalent. And so I knew that the Department of Health had a program for New Mexico, so I went on their website and pulled off the applications, and I had those available. When a patient would disclose that they used cannabis, I would tell them, you're sick, you qualify, you don't need legal problems, here you go. So they would fill out their applications, and lo and behold, the next thing I know, many of my patients are medical cannabis patients for the state of New Mexico. And at this point, they're coming to me saying, okay, Heather, now I've got my card, where do I get medicine? And at that time, it was a little shifty in New Mexico. The dispensaries weren't set up with brick and mortar buildings. It was all delivery service. Some cities didn't get serviced. And so I went on the hunt to try to find medicine for patients. And when I did that, I found that, and one thing I was telling the patients is, you're on oxygen, you've got lung issues, whatever. I think you should be using smokeless alternatives, some kind of a brownie or a topical or something like that. And they said, great, where do I get it? And so again, as I'm out hunting for where do patients get medicine in this weird, marijuana world, how does this work in the legal system? I found that there were places that had cannabis bud, but that nobody was creating any of these smokeless alternatives that my patients needed. And so I worked with a dispensary there in 2010 when I became their medical advisor on their board. And I helped them to create, I basically created products for my patients. It started out for my patients and quickly spread to where the products that I was creating through Nature's Power was, it was servicing about a third of the New Mexico patients. So that was really exciting. And then I was asked to help Arizona to set up a kitchen there, and I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. It was the first one in Arizona. So I actually set up the first edibles and infusion kitchens in New Mexico and Arizona.
Okay, and New Mexico makes sense. You just described it. You said you what were the words you just used? I didn't mean for it to happen. What does that mean? What?
I didn't know we were going to be first and we were going to catch all that press, and I just was trying, I always just try to do the right thing, and I knew it was the right thing to do, and it was actually a huge, huge benefit for the Arizona community.
Right. And then how much time do you spend in Arizona now? I know that you're back and forth to Colorado and obviously New Mexico, but what about Arizona?
I get there occasionally. I've moved on to other projects, so I don't really work with the dispensary system there. I'm more, I've started the Arizona Cannabis Nurses Association, and that's the organization that petitioned to have the Department of Health add post-traumatic stress disorder as a qualifying condition in Arizona. And it took us two years of legal battle to actually get that done. We're now fighting to have Parkinson's disease added. But really my focus in Arizona has taken on more of being an educator and trying to help put more conditions on the list so that patients can have safe access to quality medicine.
Yeah. What's ironic there, I don't know if that's the right word, but the Arizona Diamondbacks manager, Kirk Gibson, used to play baseball, just was diagnosed for Parkinson's, so there might be a connection there. But for you, I'm saying, as far as that fight is concerned. All right, so New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, then the fourth corner would be Utah, and how much is going?
Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much going on in Utah. They, they have a few patients there that are really wanting, needing the medicine, but they're so close to Colorado. I think they're just making the jump, and they're just moving.
Okay.
Patients are moving if they need to.
Got it. Okay, so that's your advice basically when you come in contact with a patient that doesn't have a medical program in their state, is to move to one that does. Is that basically
that's not really I wouldn't say that. What I would really say is, if you can, talk to your legislators and talk to people and try to get things moving in your state. But it's hard when you have sick kids and you're looking at this medicine that's potentially beneficial for them. That's why Colorado has so many cannabis refugees. People are just going there with hope in their hearts, and they're finding relief for the most part.
And as far as other states, I mean, I know that this is your home base that we're talking about, but as a nurse and as Arizona Cannabis Nurses Association, you started that. What are you hearing as far as the other medical programs across the country? Where, and by that I mean, if you can give us some insight, where are there programs that are working? It sounds like New Mexico and Arizona are working. Colorado's its own thing, but where else are there successful medical programs as far as you're concerned, as far as you know?
It's really interesting. I have yet to find the perfect system. Because every state sort of has their own little nuances. The thing about New Mexico, it's hard to get a card. It takes quite a bit of time and a lot of money to do that. And then their product access isn't quite what it should be. They don't have the supply that they need. The difference in Arizona is that it's a little bit easier to get a card quicker. Like you can have a naturopath that signs, things like that. There's more access to get a card. And there's a lot of medicine there too. So Arizona's a good place. California, what I love about California is how easy it is to be able to get a card to be a patient here. So San Diego, they had, a bunch of these collectives that were here in San Diego, and they came in and wiped them out and shut them down because they weren't legal, so to speak. And now the city of San Diego is in the process of licensing 30 dispensaries for San Diego. Well, that's been going on for months. It takes a while to get that going, but in the meantime, they've shut down all the shops, or the majority of the shops, and so everything is on a delivery basis. That makes it very difficult for a patient who needs to get access to a certain type of oil on a consistent basis because they have cancer and they need, 90 days worth of treatment or something. So even though it's easy and it's loose and it's free going, it's not exactly what it needs to be. Whereas in LA, they have more of an established system where the city has allowed for certain dispensaries. And now those dispensaries, when I get calls from that area, it's a lot more easy for me because I know which dispensaries to send people to get the medicine that they need.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, California continues, and there's some legislation now, so we'll see what happens as far as regulations changing there. But so we last let off with you where you went to Arizona, set up the first kitchen there after you had set up the first kitchen in New Mexico. Is that when you started the Cannabis Nurses Association, the Arizona Cannabis Nurses Association, or was it after that?
It was after I set up the kitchen, and I was just, I was really upset by the fact that post-traumatic stress disorder was not on the list. and that came because right before I had moved to Arizona to help them set up their program, to set up the kitchen, I had a patient who he was a veteran, 28 years old, returned from Iraq, and he had been blown up and had traumatic brain injury and terrible memory, as well as PTSD and other things. And I kept reminding him, you need to go get your card renewed. You need to get your card renewed. Well, one day he came into the shop and he didn't have his card was expired. And so I couldn't sell him medicine. And like I said, in New Mexico, sometimes it takes a little while to get your card. And during that 3-week time span, he didn't have access. He was really a hard case. He needed, very strong indica strains. Northern Lights was something that was really good for him. He couldn't have sativa strains. They set him off with anxiety. So him not having access to specific medicines through a safe dispensary method, 3 weeks after I had denied him medicine, his mom called and said that he had taken his life. And so for me, that really solidified the fact that cannabis saves lives, that it helps to reduce the suicidal ideations and those tendencies that come along with PTSD. And when I was there in Arizona, there were a lot of veterans who lived there. And not to mention women suffer from PTSD more. And I just thought this really needs to be on the list. It was just, in my mind, it was ludicrous that it wasn't on the list. And so I thought it would be easy. A petition time came around and we had some law students draw up the petition. We put it in, they denied us, and I went, what? So we went to a public hearing, and then they denied us again, and so we kept pushing forward and wound up actually having to go to see an administrative law judge, and we spent 4 days of testimony with him and bringing forth witnesses, and at the end of the day, he said he ordered, and this was a precedent-setting case because it was the first time that a judge had ever ordered a department to add a medical condition to a marijuana program. And that was what he did. He ordered the Department of Health to add PTSD to the list of qualifying conditions. Yay.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yay.
And congratulations. Yeah, exactly. And thank you. That's pretty fantastic. Have you been asked to do that in other states, or is that going on in other states? Taking the model that you created in Arizona and making sure that PTSD at least is on the list?
Absolutely, and you'll see it's a trend right now. I mean, even when we had submitted our petition, and we got denied the first time, they Nevada took our petition and they fixed it up the way they needed to, and Nevada got it passed before we did. And so that was, we went, whoa, if Nevada can do it, we can do it. We've got to keep going. And, we've had Maryland reach out to us, Colorado, they're getting ready to push that through in Colorado. It's about to be added. And we heard from the higher ups that the reason that they didn't have to go through all the legislation and all of that on this was because of the judge's ruling in Arizona, and they took that into consideration.
That precedent-setting ruling.
Yes. And so I think that what you'll start seeing is PTSD will be part of the same thing when you see cancer and glaucoma and MS. When you see those same ones all the time that are common, I believe that PTSD will be a very common addition to the lists that are coming forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we've got just, as far as further on the patient side, we've got a call into Sean Azariti to join us at some point down the line. That's the veteran who was the first person to purchase adult use or recreational cannabis in Colorado.
Yes,
right?
He is a warrior. He's just fantastic, and the work that he's doing there, for PTSD, working to try to get that in Colorado, and working with the vets, and just being very loud with the VA, and trying to make change for all of their brothers and sisters. It's really amazing what he's doing. I get chills when I think about these veterans coming home and then having to fight to be treated fairly and to have access to medicine that works. It gives me chills, but on the other hand, I say, hey, they're the ones that can do it. So let's support them where we can. That's
it. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so you keep talking about other people, Heather. That's the nurse in you, I guess. Let's kind of get back here. So Sacred Garden. Which one was the Arizona one? Green Halo or Sacred Garden?
The Halo was Arizona. Sacred Garden is Santa Fe.
It was Santa Fe. All right, so now take us through that. What was that?
In Santa Fe?
The Sacred Garden.
Oh, the Sacred Garden. So they were the wonderful people who helped me to provide access to quality medicine for the patients in New Mexico. They saw that I had these patients that needed help, and they said, okay, crazy nurse that wants to help patients, we'll take you on and let you make salves and tinctures out of our trim. And so, yeah, they've just been my family now for 5 years, and they're near and dear to my heart, and they just keep doing amazing things. And we had just had a really great panel that I was a part of in February, where we were doing education for the community, and that was a lot of fun. We just did an MS walk last weekend, and that was wonderful. And so the heart and spirit behind what Sacred Garden is really, it's in line with everything that I am. And they care about the patients. They care about the quality of the medicine. And we're doing some very great work for the people in Santa Fe and the surrounding areas because of their heart. And so that's why I stay, because we shine the same.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you bring up the MS walk. One of my very good friends has MS and absolutely gets relief from cannabis. But trying to kind of dot the map with where your travels have taken you, it's clear that you were doing work in New Mexico, and then you went to Arizona and did some work there, and then came back to the Santa Fe area in New Mexico. Is that right, for Sacred Garden?
I never really left New Mexico. So I own property there, like I said, born and raised, and so I never really left New Mexico. I just, would pack bigger bags sometimes, but I always find my way back. After Arizona, after we got the big win for PTSD, I have to say that it did induce some PTSD. I had, I was stuck in a room with a bunch of men, judges and lawyers and such, and it was really quite taxing for me personally. So as soon as that was done, I had to get out. So I moved, got a beautiful little place here in San Diego. I'm kind of hunkered down. I've been here since about August, going back and forth between New Mexico and here. And really what my role is in this industry, I always fill needs. I've found that this whole movement has happened because me as a nurse, I've always tried to fill the needs of what needs to happen. And what needs to happen right now in the new hot product is education. It's information. And I've been doing this a long time. I have a lot of knowledge and background in it. And so it's my duty to share what I know with those who don't know. And so really what my role is now is being an educator. I train in dispensaries, so I have a training program, The Healer's Way, that I will go into dispensaries and do staff training for them. It's shown to increase well-being in the dispensary, increase morale, increase sales. And so that's been a really fun thing for me. But then just being on the speaking circuit and speaking at different medical conferences, industry conferences, doing lots of content writing and little blogs and things like that can be dispersed out as snippets of information. So I would say that's what my role is currently, and I love it.
Yeah,
I couldn't be happier.
Absolutely. I mean, that's I mean, you're a wonderful person, and I would want to talk to you at any point, but that's specifically why we asked you to be, a guest so early on in what we're doing here, without question, So take us through the Healer's Way. I mean, you kind of gave us the broad strokes. How did you come up with that? And, let's start with that. How did that come to you?
Oh, that's a beautiful story. So I was, doing this training. I was going to be doing a training for Sacred Garden. And we needed to go over policies, procedures. We had all these things, sexual harassment, just whatever, basic things that you would be covering for a business and doing training on. And I got a call about 3 days before I was supposed to give this training. And one of the owners of the dispensary just said, Heather, our team is just not working well. We've got all this drama and all these issues, and we just really need your help getting on the same page. And I went, well, I've just spent the last 2 months putting together this training program for you, so sure, let me change everything. And so I got off the phone, and I just kind of sat there and I meditated for a minute, and I thought, how can I fill their needs? How can we make this right? And it was literally, it just came to me. It was like a light bulb went off, and I started creating this training program that addressed team building and professional appearances and how to it talks about the medicine and what medicine they have in stock, and it formed into this role play scene, and we do these team building exercises, and I just went, whoa. In my head, I'm thinking, this is really going to work. This is something cool. And so it took me, like I said, I took about 2 months putting together the other one, and this one I whipped out in 6 hours. And when I was done with it, I wasn't exhausted, which I usually am. I was excited, and I thought, this is something special. I felt like it was divinely planted in my brain. And so when I went and did it for the first time, I've done this training multiple times over since then, but when I did it the first time, at the end, because of the way everything worked, I had each person giving a compliment to someone else, and to say, we would stand someone up and everyone would compliment them. And by the end of it, this staff is crying, laughing, hugging each other, joking around, and it literally changed everything about the energy. And I realized that there needed to be an energy shift. It had less to do with the words and the policies and procedures and all of that. It had more to do with how they felt, and they needed to be empowered, and they needed to be connected. And so through this training program, although it covered so much about cannabis, the endocannabinoid system, the products that were on their shelves, how they interacted with patients, it covered everything we needed to cover. It also did something that most training sessions don't do, And that connected these people in a way that they were tight. And so a week later, I get a call from the same dispensary owner, and she says, I can't tell you what a difference this has made. Our morale has increased. They're getting along. We're hearing the words endocannabinoid system being used multiple times throughout the day. Patients are more responsive. They're engaged. And so it was, and sales went up. I mean, that's just what happens when there's good vibes going on. And so for me, the Healer's Way training program has been a beautiful way to spread my seeds of happiness and love, and to really make a ripple that's lasting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so where was that first one that you did?
In Santa Fe.
And then where has the Healer's Way taken you?
It's been to a couple in New Mexico, it's been to Arizona, and it's going to be in Colorado. We've got some training scheduled. Yep.
Got it. Great. Excellent.
And it can be anywhere your listeners want it to be.
By the way,
just give me a call and we will bring the Healer's Way your direction.
We'll bring the Healer's Way your way.
Your way.
All right. And then it sounds like it's a very, very intensive and personal exercise. Is there a digital component the marketer in me wants to ask?
That's a really great question, and it's been asked by others, and so I'm going to be working on that. I don't quite know how to do it without being there. There's something about just my presence and being able to facilitate and as a nurse assess and shift as things need to shift. We've done this training where they had 25 people in the room. We've done it where we had 4 people in the room. So it's really, you can do it. I need to figure out how to put it on that digital format, but it's coming. I have some very bright people working with me, and we're going to get it done.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on that. I want to kind of ask you your opinion on where we are as an industry. You've been dealing with cannabis as a medicine for a while. You're basically an industry veteran. And so I want to, how do you think we're doing here? Where do you think we are?
Oh, some days you don't want to ask me that question.
Is this one of those days?
No, it's not. Actually, I'm an eternal optimist, and so I look at all of this growth as positive growth. I mean, the plant needs to be freed. We need to bring forth the education, the knowledge, start breaking down the stigmas. What Sanjay Gupta has done for the cannabis world is just amazing by bringing forth that science. There's some really amazing things happening. People are being awoken and they're being healed. Those are all good things. There is, for every bright day, there's a dark day. So I guess the dark side of what I'm seeing with growth is to be expected, because you see that with any business. But it's the sharks and snakes, I like to say. There's a lot of people that think that this industry is a place to cash in. And for a lot of people, it will be a place where they can cash in. I would always caution them to remember that we are not selling widgets. We are selling medicine. We are selling plant essence. We are selling our teacher. And we need to really be thoughtful about what it is that we're doing, who we're connecting with, how we're conducting ourselves, how we handle the medicine. So even as new industry people are coming in, I would say, I know that everyone gets blinded by the green of cash, but please don't forget to pay attention to the green itself, the cannabis plant that has essence and spirit and beauty to it, and treat it appropriately. Don't make a mockery of it.
Yeah.
Treat it
absolutely.
Treat it with respect.
It's a very good point, and I want to make sure to ask you directly, because you mentioned it early on. Plants are our teachers. What exactly do you mean by that?
Plants can teach us all kinds of things. I used to take my kids out to the garden, and we would look at the tomatoes, and we would be able to pick from the tomatoes, and we would say, you see how we grow these marigolds in with these tomatoes. The marigolds keep the good beneficial bugs here to help our tomatoes grow. And so, there's always these little things about plants, smelling, when you have herbs, herb gardens besides cannabis, the kids could come in and we would smell them, and the ones that resonated with them, they'd want to take in, and I'd teach them how to make tea and what that tea felt like in their throats, and how it made their bodies feel. And so plants are healthy for us. Gardening is healthy for us. Being connected to the earth, it's all healthy for us. And you can take it to the Native American culture and their use of plants. They have a mountain smoke that they'll smoke before their ceremonies. They take the peyote tea, which is a mushroom type, which is hallucinogenic. They do that because it opens their minds to be able to see what it is that they need to do to better their lives. And I feel like cannabis is a very powerful plant that can do that for us. It can open us up, help us to realize that there's healthier ways to live our lives, that we don't have to be strapped to the pill bottle and, it's 12 o'clock, I've got to take my noon meds. That there is a healthier way to live. And if we turn to our plants, I've always said the ways of the past will be the ways of our future. And I said that before the cannabis rush even came in. And I believe that that's happening, that the way that we used to handle ourselves and take care of ourselves through the use of medicines and plants, even the ones that people get weirded out by, peyote, ayahuasca, those kinds of things. We need to pay attention to that. Mushrooms, they're finding that the psilocybin mushrooms have benefit to help with depression, certain things like that. And I'm not, talking about mushrooms right now, but there are lessons that can be learned through these different plants, and just paying attention to what they teach us. Cannabis has taught me to be loving. It has taught me to be non-judgmental. It's taught me to be softer and more compassionate. And it's also taught me to be strong and to not ever back down, because, I believe in this plant so much that it does have a message for us, and I believe that's part of it, love and compassion.
There you go, love and compassion.
It's my secret ingredient.
So you said that there are lessons to be learned, and I guess that might be a good way to end. My final two questions, and they sound the same, but they're different. One is in relation to cannabis and the cannabis industry, and one is in relation to just life. But they both are, what has most surprised you? So what has most surprised you about cannabis?
Oh, that's a really great question. What has surprised me? It surprises me that this plant created such stir back in 1935 and before 1935 and before, that they felt that they needed to make it illegal and keep it from everyone. That surprises me, that a plant could make humanity react in such a way. On the flip side of that, cannabis right now is surprising me by how it's touching so many lives. And it never gets old to meet a patient whose life has been changed around by medicine, by cannabis medicine. And to be honest with you, I am forever surprised at what we are finding out scientifically about the endocannabinoid system, and how the answers for a lot of these deficiencies and problems within the human body, cannabis has the answer for. And that continually surprises me.
That's a great answer. And thank you for the kind of dovetailing of the answer. The this is then and that was now, or that was then and this is now. I guess we'll let someone else work that out. But as far as as far as life is concerned, you've been through a lot. You took us through your journey. What's most surprised you?
My spirit has surprised me. The strength of the human spirit is surprising. It's not just mine. I see it in others as well. Nothing that's happened to me in my life would I ever change. Nothing do I regret. Nothing would I take back. I believe that everything, and I mean everything, that has happened in my life up to this point has brought me exactly where I need to be. And it will continue to do that through every experience. And that's just in life. You know, I see people in the psychology world that I also work in, that they get bogged down. They get bogged down by these issues in their life. And I say, let it move through you. Because the second that you hold on to this stuff and you get angry and resentful and you want, wish things were different, that changes the energy. But if you say, wow, this is a pretty wacky experience, let's let this move through me, then you've experienced it. You've been there, done that, and you can move on and do something better. So the human spirit is what's most surprising to me in life, and the fact that it's resilient.
Yeah, I got to ask you the follow-up question there, though. So what do you mean, let it move through you? What are you saying there?
If somebody calls you a bad name and it makes all your blood boil, or they say something that just sets you off and your blood boils and if you're in a specific setting where you can't say something to them, you just kind of hold it in, and then you go home and you're pissed off about it, and then you kick the cat or whatever, that's you holding it. But if somebody says something to you and you let it move through you, you recognize that whatever they said had nothing to do with you. It was their experience that they were going through that made them say what they needed to say and do. It really has nothing to do with you. You cannot take things personally in this world. Everyone's living their own experience and their own reality. So if you let someone else's stuff, or if you let these experiences that come up move through you, where you say, yeah, I see that, I understand that, I'm going to work through this and let it be, then you're not holding and harboring a lot of baggage. I work with people a lot of times who carry a ton of baggage. If you can help them move through that and drop the baggage, their lives just soar in exponential ways. And so that's what I mean when I say just let it move through you. Don't hold it. Don't harbor it. It's not your stuff.
There you go. Nurse Heather, you are a smart person. You're a good person. You've done a lot to kind of move things forward in the industry, and more importantly, you've done a lot of things to help a lot of people. So thank you for that on behalf of Earth, and thank you on behalf of me for joining us. Thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Seth. It's been a pleasure.
Plants are our teachers. So that is another one of those very, very serious people doing great work in the cannabis industry. She is light, she is nice, she is fun. She mentions love and compassion being the most important parts of anything that she does. But she's a serious person and she's getting a lot done. So thanks to Heather.